I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Travel, space travel. We think of it as a chemical rocket limited to the immediate region around the Earth. But there are technologies now available, if combined correctly, following a new book that is coming imminently, the new race to space. This is about Maglev technology. That's the ability to travel in a frictionless tube to launch from Earth. But now we want to go beyond this to a technology that's available now called Sunburn that'll allow very high escape velocities from our solar system. I'm an impatient person. I'm a senior middle-aged person. I'm not going to get off this planet. However, I want mankind, especially my American brethren, to get off this planet quickly and explore our solar system and look to the near stars, to the stars we're now seeing have multiple planet systems around them. Charlie, a very good evening to you. Charles Pellegrino is one of the co-authors of this new book. Explain Sunburn, the Sunburn concept. Good evening, Charlie.
Well, it would be a very large system, meaning, more mass than it took to put up with the Saturn V rocket. But once we have things like what we were talking about with the Maglev launchers, and that we can get things into space for $50 a pound rather than $10,000 a pound, which is what it used to cost with the space shuttle, we can start, and once we use that technology to really start preserving agriculture on Earth and things of that sort, we can start looking at expanding out into the solar system and beyond. Sunburn is a method where you would start out probably with a throwaway nuclear booster, then you're using your engine to use ion propulsion, which is a very slow acceleration, but you can get up to pretty high speeds. And also you would use a slingshot around and very close to the sun to eventually put you, after about 20, perhaps 30 years, at these specific points from which we could view other stars using the gravitational field of the sun itself from a distance beyond Pluto as a gravitational lens. So we would work out in advance what we really want to look at.
In other words, you're building a giant telescope to look at other star systems. We're putting out an observation system that can be manned at a distance from our sun to use gravitational lensing so that the sun becomes a telescope.
Right. And it becomes a very, very good telescope, so that at our nearest neighbor, if there were a gas giant within the habitable zone with moons traveling around it, we could actually begin using the sun as a gravitational lens to image at Alpha Centauri if there were a world like Pandora orbiting some gas giant, we would actually be able to see continents and oceans and be able to reveal much about the content of the atmosphere.
Direct imaging. Now, do we have the technology to build Sunburn now? Begin with Maglev, which I know we have the technology for that. It's just a question of building the launch system. Do we have the technology to launch Sunburn once we get into orbit?
We have the technology to build the equipment. That is basically off-the-shelf technology to build the telescope itself. The equipment to actually get the heavy load into space.
That's Maglev. That's Maglev.
That is something that's also off-the-shelf technology. Right. We could have it operating with, we could have the Tram system operating and launching things within 10 years.
All right, let me put it all together, Charlie, because we talked about Tram last week. This is a new book, the new race to space, how Maglev launch will change the world. Once the Maglev system is online, that permits you to launch very heavy loads, parts, into orbit, into low Earth orbit. We have the ISS there today. There was a spectacular event. There was a leak in the spacesuit today. There was lots of anxiety. The astronauts are safe, but it's very expensive to lift with chemical rockets any weight into space at all. The Maglev system allows you to raise very heavy loads, that would include the nuclear power rocket. We could lift that with Maglev, correct?
Right. We could lift all of the equipment just with the version of star tram that launches equipment only and not people. We could get all of the pieces up there.
All right, and we're building Sunburn over what? 5 years to assemble it. We're putting it into low Earth we're assembling it in low Earth orbit, and then we're launching it using the sun's gravity.
Right. Well, we would initially launch using either a large chemical rocket or a nuclear propulsion system that's essentially a throwaway propulsion system. Or if you want to take 10 years to accelerate up to the speed that you would need to do a flyby of the sun, you would just go with the lower acceleration ion propulsion. But it's better just to have a rocket that you throw away.
Do you want this manned or
it would be unmanned.
Unmanned. You don't want to man the launch system because what you're looking to do is put this observation platform at a great distance from the sun. How far? The Kuiper Belt?
It would be way, way out there. It would be out there past Pluto, where the sun is basically a very dim point.
And we would be controlling it from Earth.
The gravitational lensing effect.
We would be controlling the platform all the while. We've got New Horizons, the mission that's approaching Pluto now and is going to head into the Kuiper Belt. The Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are at the end of our solar systems, launched in the 1970s. So will it take 20, 30 years to get out to the point where do you want to put the platform?
Right. It would get out there to that distance. It would actually go out ahead of where Voyagers 1 and 2 and the Pioneer spacecraft are now. It would go out to about that distance, but it would actually at some point pass them.
All right, so that would establish this gravitational lensing system, this giant telescope, and then we would then turn it on our nearby star systems to ascertain where life is possible. Is that why we're doing this?
Right, and it would be possible to resolve other worlds around other stars very near to the kind of resolution that we could resolve Mars with the telescope from Earth.
All right, we'll continue this story. The new book is The New Race to Space, How Maglev Launch Will Change the World. It's simple enough. If you can get the weight into space cheap enough, you can build the lensing system that allows us to see our neighbors. Now we can just perceive them crossing a sun. The transit system, this would allow us to spy on them. Charles Pellegrino, the book is The New Race to Space. It's online quickly. I'm John Batchelor.